Hi, it's Teresa from Dodge Nature Center, and time for another Nature to Go. Well, we're coming up on that favorite time of year. Okay, spring is a favorite time of year, but how about that it's the time to switch to daylight savings time? Okay, not everybody welcomes the switch. We lose an hour of sleep after all. So why do we do it? Who came up with this idea to save time? People believe that the idea of daylight saving time originated with Ben Franklin when in 1784 he wrote an essay explaining how the people of Paris could save on candle usage by getting up an hour earlier each day. He was really being facetious and wasn't really talking about saving time the way we do it today. He was mocking people who slept late into the morning and then needed extra lighting because they were up and active later into the evening. So, what are we trying to accomplish by moving time? The main goal seems to be to set time to when humans are most active, to make the best use of when we have daylight available. So, the town of Port Arthur, Ontario was the first place to reset clocks to take advantage of daylight. Soon, other towns in Canada followed suit. This was back in 1906. But it wasn't until 1916 that an entire country would make the switch. This happened in Germany during World War I, and it was presented as a way to save energy because less fuel would be being used. After that, other countries started adopting this plan, including the U.S. In 1918, the U.S. began what was called fast time. Switching time was promoted as a way to improve public health and happiness, to reduce energy consumption, and it was supposed to benefit retail businesses. The idea didn't go down well with farmers because it impacted when they could take produce and other products to the market. It was lighter later in the day, but the markets were closed, so what was the point? And farmers weren't the only ones who didn't agree. So within 7 months, fast time was repealed. Daylight saving time returned during World War II. From February 1942 through September 1945, the country went on wartime and moved its timekeeping to a daylight saving schedule to support the war effort. Once the war was over, individual states could decide whether or not to continue following the daylight saving time. And with no standardization throughout the time zones, it was really confusing for everybody. Anybody who needed to use trains or buses or for broadcasting schedules, there was no consistency. So in 1966, the Uniform Time Act was signed into law, and this standardized when daylight saving times would begin and end. Individual states could opt out, and Hawaii and Arizona decided to do that. But the rest of the country would spring ahead in March and then go back to standard time in the fall. There was some grumbling about this system, but nothing really changed until 1974. Increased oil prices and an oil embargo led to the 1974 energy crisis. The government rationed fuel, it lowered speed limits to help reduce consumption of gasoline, and another way the government decided to save energy was to go on daylight saving time year-round. Now, people weren't happy, especially families with school-aged children, because they had to wait for their buses in the dark in the mornings. The law was repealed, and so we went back to part of the year being daylight saving time and the rest of the year being on standard time. After this, there was sporadic debate about when and how long daylight saving time should last, and in 2005, the Energy Policy Act standardized the dates, that daylight saving time would begin on the second Sunday of March and would end on the first Sunday in November. And that's why we'll be losing an hour of sleep on Sunday, March 9th this year. According to the law, that's the date when daylight savings time will begin because we'll spring ahead at 2 a.m. But is it worth it? Studies have found that the spring switch is especially hard for humans. Many people are more tired and moodier during the days following the switch, and some people are more anxious and depressed. It's more likely for there to be car accidents. And research has found that the incidence of heart attack rises by 10% after the spring switch. And as far as supposedly helping to save energy, well, there actually tends to be increased consumption of fuel because people will go out more when there's daylight available. Polls in recent years show that over 60% of people want to stop switching between standard time and daylight saving time in a year. So great, we agree on that, but then there's not any agreement on which time we should stay with. Some people think we should use daylight saving time year-round, while others want to stay with standard time. For the time being, we're switching between the two. In the meanwhile, here are some suggestions from sleep experts on how to help your body make the switch to daylight savings time. For a few days before the switch on March 9th, adjust both your waking times and sleeping times by 15 to 20 minutes earlier. The day we switch into daylight saving times, March 9th, get up early that Sunday morning and try to get as much sunshine early in the day as possible. And while it's tempting to want to enjoy the late evening sunshine, don't stay out too late. Be sure to get plenty of sleep on Sunday night. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Nature to Go, and we'll talk to you again next time.